guys get started. Baird is a graduate of Marshall University School of Business. We'll let that slide. Now works as a pen tester. He's going to do a presentation on setting up and automating BackTrack. So thanks, Lee. Introduce a little bit about yourself. I'm sure that wasn't a thorough introduction.
Sorry. So like Bill said, the talk's on setting up BackTrack, automating various tasks with bash scripts. Basically what I'm going to do, when I left last night, I was thinking I really like, there seems to be a big separation in this room between the left side and the right side, and various different skill sets within the room. So I'm going to try to go down the middle of the road, but I'm going to do some very basic stuff. So to try to educate and bring a little awareness to people on some of the security tools. And I'm also going to go over some more in-depth stuff with Metasploit scripting in Nmap. Like Bill said, my name is Baird. I graduated here from Marshall University. I got a bachelor's degree in accounting. I'm a certified security, offensive security certified professional. I was a roadie for 10 years, and I'm a former U.S. Marine. I basically do enterprise security assessments for different Fortune 500 companies. Those consist of vulnerability assessments, computer network exploitation, wireless assessments, social engineering, and physical assessments as well. So first thing, what is BackTrack? Has anyone on this side of the room heard of BackTrack before? Okay. So a little bit of the overview here, sorry. We're going to go over what is BackTrack, setting up a virtual machine, information gathering, Nmap, Metasploit, and automating. So like I said, a couple people raised their hands over here as far as BackTrack. Not to bore everyone, BackTrack is a Linux-based security distro. Contains many tools used for security assessments. It comes in 32, 64-bit, two different environments, which are GNOME and KDE. And you can run this on bare metal from a live bootable or live DVD, a bootable USB thumb drive, or a VM. The best thing, it's free. So where can you find this? Included here is the link on this site. Various resources for downloads, how-tos. They got a great forum section for answering questions. They have a really good wiki, and they also have training included, which would be offensive security training. Next part is going to be basically setting up your VM, not to go over an entire setting up a pen test lab, but I'm just going to hit this real quick. The latest version of BackTrack, I believe, was released in March. It's 5R2. When you go up to download, you need to choose your environment. That would be either your 32-bit, 64-bit, KDE or GNOME. What I go with is the 32-bit GNOME. The archive's about 2 gig in size. It does take a while to download. You're also going to need some virtual software. On OS X, I run Vmware Fusion, and on Windows, Vmware Workstation. This VM takes between 1 to 4 gig of RAM to run, depending on what type of tools that you have installed and you're running at the time. If you're just going to be running from using the terminal, 1 gig would be more than enough. If you're going to use something like Metasploit Express, I would bump it up to 2 gig, and if I'm going to use Nexpose, which is a complete memory hog, I would go 4 gig minimum. So when after you download your VM, you're going to boot this up for the first time in whatever virtualization software that you chose. You're going to pick the first menu option. These are the default credentials that you'll log in with, root and tour. The very first thing you need to do is change your password. This is the Linux command to do that, PSSWD. Fix the splash screen with the following fix splash. You want to reboot the VM and then log in with your new creds. A lot of people forget to do this, and a lot of times at HackerCons, people are spinning up new VMs all the time, and they get pwned right off the bat. So change your password. After the new VM boots up, issue in a startx, and you'll be able to pull up your GUI. Next thing that will help you a lot when you're setting up your VMs is install VMware tools if you are running VMware. Basically, this is going to help you to be able to cut, copy, paste between your virtual host and your your host and your virtual machine. Going through various steps here. I'll have this slide deck up for Adrian on his site, so I won't bore you with all these steps right now, but it is basically walk through step by step for you. Once your VM's up and running, there's a couple things I like to do to set this up for myself. I got really bad eyes, so I got to blow everything up. These next steps that I put together are basically, say for example, if you get out on site or something and your VM crashes, I wanted to wait that I could quickly build back up my attack platform and go, I want to make sure I don't forget anything. So, going through here, setting up the terminal, basically just increasing the font size, making it a lot easier to view. The big thing that you want to check here is the scrolling. I believe by default it's set to 500 lines, which when you're doing a pen test you will run out very, very quickly. So make sure you get that set to unlimited. Gedit is just a text-based editor. Again, a few modifications that I do to make things easier to read. Auto log in. When you're at home testing, a simple way to get your VM to auto log in. Next thing I do is work on Firefox. There's 3 different plugins here that you should familiarize yourself with and install. Here's 4 really good URLs that you should bookmark for various tools that you may set up on your VM, which includes Metasploit, Nessus, Nexpose, and NSC Docs. NSC Docs is basically a link to Fyodor's page for the Nmap scripting engine documentation, and we'll get into that a little more. This site is constantly updated with new scripts, so it's a really, really good reference to have, especially with some of the stuff that's coming up. Okay, so the next thing you can do, I've got a repo set out on Google Code. It was my repository for scripts. You can SVN, check out this code. The next line would be giving permissions to everything within that folder to make the scripts executable. Then the next thing you want to do is to run the setup script. Again, this is something that I just put together to help quickly set up the VM so we don't forget anything. Simple things like setting up SSH keys, setting up alias, install a few tools like FileZilla, X2 tools. Other applications are under continuous development, and I like to delete the original applications that are on the distro and pull these from their repos. And that could be either from SVN or GitHub. Those 4 tools are DNS Recon, the Harvester, Nmap, and SQL Map. Okay. One of the things in the slide, in the setup script is setting up aliases. These are basically just shortcuts when you're starting out that will help you to get around the operating system just a little faster. They work for me. I use them all the time. Clearing the screen, listing, changing to different directories that I use all the time. Create a couple aliases here for networking. Sometimes when you're out on a pen test, you might be troubleshooting a problem. You don't know if a router's dropping packets, lost your IP address. So I always just open up another tab, hit Apple I. It shows me that I've got an IP address, and I try to ping out to Google 3 times. It's just something I use for my network connectivity. Another good alias put together is N. And this just shows you a little bit more about your networking setup. It will show you all the listening TCP, UDP ports, as well as the processes running and their process ID. It'll also show you the interfaces that you have, MAC address of those interfaces, your internal and your external IPs. Another miscellaneous alias is SIP, which I call that for sort IP addresses. So on the left-hand side, if you have a list of IP addresses and you issue a sort command, it'll sort them in the following order, which is obviously incorrect numerically. If you use this alias, it will correctly sort your IPs. Use this all the time. One too fast or got it? All right. So here's an alias called update. We use this a lot. This is what I use to keep my distro up to date. And it updates about 14 different things here that you can see. A lot of times when you pause your VM or put your computer to sleep, it'll throw off your date and time. And I always like to have a good timestamp and stuff on my files. So updates that first. Next thing it goes about is updating the actual BackTrack repository itself. And then there's various tools that it updates. On the Aircrack NG, that site tends to be very, very slow, and it'll seem to hang there sometimes for about 10 to 15 seconds, but it will eventually pull down. Anyway, this is a great way to keep your BackTrack distro up and running, and these are a lot of the major tools that I use. Okay, so that's just pretty much a basic way to spin up an attack platform for you to start tooling around with, and for guys on this side of the room, something to keep your distro updated so that before you go out to the client site, you're at the hotel in the morning, all you gotta do is type update, and most of the tools that you're gonna need for that engagement are updated. Next thing we're gonna talk about is open source intelligence gathering. Sometimes when you do an assessment, it may be a black box assessment. You can also have social engineering. For example, if we're doing a black box assessment and we're working for Marshall, maybe that's the only thing that they gave us was the school name. We know nothing. We don't even know the URL of the school or anything. So you're going to need to go out and take a look at what intel that you can scrape off of the web. And I put two scripts together to help automate this process. So the first script, you can either pull company intel or personal intel. This is nothing groundbreaking. All it's doing is using simple bash scripts to automate putting these tools together. Basically, it'll create a folder at your root directory called root recon, and it pulls information from these different sites here, DeepMagic, Robotex, and into DNS, and it creates these files for you in those directories, or in that directory, excuse me. The next thing it'll do is we'll open Firefox with multiple tabs, and go ahead and load the pages in with the correct domain name that you've issued. So if I put in marshall.edu, so here for example, Adrian will switch up here. So for example, the host list that I put together for Marshall. There's 1,001 hosts that I was able to pull off. And there's a couple of HTML pages here. Let me get So here's a type of example of some of the intel it's pulling. Basically, your netcraft information on the domain, types of servers, operating systems, what the last time that the server might have changed. You might be able to tell when the company has patched their server last, any IP addresses that the servers are on. Here's the Deep Magic site. You're able to pull up to 10,000 IPs on this. They'll give you a list of IP addresses and matching URLs on the right-hand side. So some good stuff to, like, forensics. And you can tell when their natting starts to take place right here. But you could use grep to pull out all of the NAT URLs and get down to the ones that might be a little more juicier. Okay. Tracker, mobile filter. Video, so on and so forth. One of the other URLs it pulls is Shodan. Shodan is a site that basically goes out and scans other hosts and posts their findings for you to view, so you actually don't have to scan the IPs. Okay, so again, nothing groundbreaking, just automating the process. So the whole idea is, instead of doing going out on engagement, when you're actually on the client site, if you have to do this, you want to spend the least amount of time on this as possible. Intel should take you literally no more than like about 15 minutes, and with these scripts, you should be able to do it in about 5 to 10 minutes. So it's just helping you automate this. There's a couple other URLs included for Edgar and Google Finance. The next thing, yes, sorry.
Is there any danger of running any of these tools, such as the Shodan, against your own network? Are you going to end up automatically in your database if you run it against your own network, or are you leaking data?
Go ahead.
I can speak for Shodan. When you do searches, you're not actively making the request. It's requests that have already been made. You're just mining the data.
Right. So again, all of this is passive recon. You know, we've done nothing to marshal or the company that we're going after. So it's really fun to go after a lot of different companies or three-letter agencies or whatever to do recon, see what's out there.
One note: don't pull up Deep Magic with just HTTP. Make sure you have HTTPS. He may have nefarious stuff out there. He had previously.
Understood. All right. Slightly touch on Google hacking. Has anyone over here heard of Google hacking before? Okay. All right. Basically, Google hacking is using advanced search operators that Google has to pull various information that Google's crawlers have cached onto their servers. Again, not directly accessing the client, just pulling from Google's cache. I'm going to go over two operators here. The first operator is site with a colon followed by the domain. So, for example, if we're doing target.com, we do a site colon target.com, and that's going to give us every single URL that Google has ever crawled for Target. We can also search for a particular file type. For example, Excel, PowerPoint, Word, PDF, and text files. The search operator for that is file type followed by the actual type. So it would be like, say, file type colon XLSX for the new version. Sorry?
Is it space password?
Right, like I said, I'm just going over two basic operators, and I'm going to go over examples for why I'm going over one too. Okay, so again, using Marshall example, what I did is I set up some different search operators. Again, this is all done automatically for you. It throws in, we've got one tab that's for both formats of Excel, the old 2007 version and the new version with XML. We're doing the same thing for PowerPoint, docs, PDFs, and text files. So to give you a little overview of what I was able to find real quick. So by using those different tabs, we were able to pull, or I was able to locate 636 different Excel files, and you can read the rest of the numbers here. 17,000 PDF files out there on Marshall sites. Okay, you can bet that somewhere out there is an Excel file that probably shouldn't be there, and it might have PII, personally identifiable information, located in it, which would be very, very juicy for a social engineering type of engagement. So this is something that you guys can do. It's very, very easy. Again, the only two operators that we're using is the site and the file type. And that's an example of it right there, what I used. Okay. The other option for the first script is going after personal type of information. Again, nothing groundbreaking, just Firefox opening multiple tabs with a bunch of different search engines that I like to use with the names already populated. Next script that I wrote is called Scrape, and it combines 14 different tools on BackTrack. With this, you're able to gather names, email addresses, whois information, more DNS info, and routing. And I can't do a live demo because I don't have internet access right here, but when the script runs, it will count down so you can look at the different iterations. So for the name and email addresses, basically I'm using 4 different scripts, which are Googmail, GooHost, the Harvester, and Metasploit. Within the Harvester, there are different switches that you can use to pull from different types of locations. 123 people, Ask, Bing, Google, LinkedIn, Yahoo, and all. Metasploit also has one auxiliary scanner for enumerating emails. The reason that I go through 10 of those, if you run each one of those tools separately, you're going to get 10 completely different sets of answers. So what I do is I correlate or aggregate all that information together to give you a very nice list. And that is indispensable. You know, somebody that's on your team calls you up and says, hey man, I'm on site, the client just wants me to do a social engineering assessment. They want to see how many email addresses we can find in an hour, which has happened before. Run this script, 30 seconds, you get a ton of email addresses. Next thing it does is pulls whois information on the domain and on the IP. This is loving this projector. The last 2 tools are DNS enum that I use for all the DNS enumeration and traceroute. And to give you an example of what that looks like, so I ran this against Marshall, and oops. Okay, so it came up with 132 different names and 148 different email addresses. Normally what you can do is if you start looking at the names and the email addresses, you might be able to figure out their naming convention, whether it's like lbaird@google.com or leebaird@google.com or lee-baird, and that will help you. So for example, if we see this person's name here, we've already figured out the email naming convention here for the school. I know that I can put together an email list and send tsacks@marshall.edu a phishing email. So a lot of people, when you bring this back to them, I've ran this on companies and came back with 600 email addresses in a minute before, and they're like, I had no idea that my footprint was that large. And you start explaining to them how susceptible they are to phishing, spear phishing emails. All the whois information here on the domain, on the IP, various DNS enumeration, the name servers, IP addresses of the mail servers, and subdomains. It gives you a possible listing of Class Cs as well. And it does some trace route for you with Echo and with Sense. Sorry about this resolution, Adrian.
Yeah, it's going to cut off the bottom of it.
Yeah. Anyone have any questions on recon? Yep.
So, I didn't catch, what was the range?
This is all Bash.
It's all back?
Yeah, I'm not a coder by any means. It's just all Bash scripting, basically linking various tools together. Like I said, this is nothing groundbreaking. It's just trying to help you automate your process. Okay, so the next part of the script is called Discover. And basically, this is leveraging Nmap and Metasploit. So first thing we're going to do for Nmap is obviously host discovery. You can feed this, it takes different options. You can do a ping sweep. You can run scans on a single host or URL. The local area network, I use this all the time. If you're doing a social engineering assessment and your idea is to break into a building, go in, plug in, grab an IP address, scan everything on the local subnet, that's the option I always use to be able to get in, get out. Sometimes the client will provide you a hodgepodge list of hosts. Other time they will give you CIDR notation. So it takes all those different types of formats. And then for Nmap, what we're basically doing with port scanning, service enumeration, and OS identification. The other thing that it leverages is the Nmap scripting engine, or NSE. Right now there's about 325 plus scripts for this. It's basically more enumeration that you can do with Nmap. These scripts are changing literally hourly. So as one of the stuff that I put up on setting up the Firefox, that's why I put that bookmark up there, because as new stuff is written, like your buddy, you're able to pull that stuff up and take a look at it. It's really, really good to leverage those. The other thing that it's going to go into is Metasploit. Metasploit is an exploitation framework. The good thing about it, it has database integration. It has auxiliary scanners, which you touched on here before, which can do brute forcing and enumeration. And what we're going to use with that are various different resource files. So basically, anyone know what a resource file is for Metasploit? Besides Dave. Okay, a resource file for Metasploit is basically a list of commands that you can run. So when you're inside the framework, you can say resource, and then the file name, and it automatically executes it for you. So for example...
Metamacros.
Huh?
Metamacros.
Yeah. So for example here, on the framework discovery here, one of the resources I have is start a Metasploit listener on port 443. So this. So basically, it's going to start up a Metasploit listener, like it says, on port 443 with the Windows interpreter reverse TCP, and it takes about 20 seconds. Again, nothing earth-shattering, but how many times have you had to go and look up the commands to do that? While that's running, I'm going to pull up the resource file so you can take a look at it. And that's what a resource file looks like. The reason it takes about 20 seconds to load is it's starting Metasploit for the first time, and it's loading all the plugins and auxiliary modules. And then you're ready to go. Your handler's sitting there, ready to rock. Okay, so let's just put all this together and get a demo. So I've got 3 VMs running right now. It's kind of like the king of the hill yesterday. I've got Metasploitable, Ultimate Lamp, and a Windows XP Service Pack 2 box. These top two, the Metasploitable and Ultimate Lamp are free from downloads from the Rapid 7 website. The Metasploitable is pretty easy to find. The Ultimate Lamp is, you really have to dig around for that. So 2 great resources. All right, so make sure first start here. All right, so let's do a demo. We'll do a list of hosts here, so instead of scanning the whole CIDR, I just put together a list of 3 IPs. We're going to call this Demo 2. It's going to ask you if this is an internal or external scan. You want to tell me what the difference I would want to use in Nmap, if it's internal or external scan, and why?
Are you referring to global segment versus remote segment?
I'm like thinking about IDS evasion.
Oh. I don't know why.
So, okay, so if it's an external scan, you might want to set your source port to port 53. If it's an internal scan, set your source port to port 88, and that's what it's doing right now. Ask you for a list of your IP addresses. And it starts to launch the scan. This takes about 4 minutes.
So when you say internal or external, you're referring to how you want to build your handlers? Is that what you're saying?
No, as far as setting the source port for Nmap.
Okay.
Most of your IDSs are going to be looking for scans coming from sources of vulnerable services.
Also, you could think of it as if I'm scanning externally, most firewalls are going to have port 53 open. They're going to have 53, 80, and 443 by default as a minimum.
So you're saying that you would be less likely to be caught. You'd be looking like DNS responses.
It's just a type of evasion technique.
Okay.
Not to say that you won't get caught, it's just a type of evasion technique.
If you have a large organization, you're going to have a lot of DNS traffic. You'll probably just get lost in that.
So as the script's running, I'm going to, try to back it up here and try to explain it to you as it's going. Like I said, you let it know if it's doing internal and external. If it's an external, it's going to set the source port to 53. Internal, set the source port to 88, which is Kerberos. It's doing a discovery right now, trying to find live hosts. After it finds hosts, it's locating different ports and it's building out individual port lists for you. And these are all high-value ports that I've picked for various reasons. you'll be able to obviously modify this in the script for what you want. The cool thing about it is after the Nmap scan is done, it doesn't take any processing power. You're not scanning anymore on the client's environment. It's just creating the list for you, and you'll see why we're creating those individual lists here in just a second. So after it does that with the host discovery, runs Nmap, creates all the different IP lists. The next thing it does is it goes through the Nmap scripting engine that we talked about earlier. So it knows that the different services from the 3 IPs that we've scanned have the different hosts have the following services running: FTP, SSH, Telnet, SMTP, DNS, Network Time Protocol, NetBIOS, looking for a particular vulnerability here, file shares, and MySQL. So what it's doing is from it's creating the IP list, let's say for port 21, and then it's taking all of the Nmap scripting engine scripts that deal with FTP and running it against just that IP address for further enumeration. One of the things is great is you can pull right for MS08067. Basically what this is was the last major remote exploit for Windows MS08. It was released in 08. 67 was the 67th vulnerability of that year for Microsoft. And it's a very, very reliable exploit, as I'm sure you guys all know. So if you're going in and you're trying to pop boxes and get domain admin in the first 20 minutes, there you go. So after it's went through all the Nmap scripts, the next thing it's going to do is ask you if you'd like to do the same type of thing with all the Metasploit auxiliaries. By default, it's set to no. And if you'll notice that the Metasploit auxiliaries, these are running the resource files that I spoke about earlier, and you can see that they're the exact same thing as the Nmap scripts. Now for HTTP, there are a ton of scripts and auxiliaries for the Metasploit auxiliary stuff. I put together a large resource file and a very small one. What happens is if you're only scanning one host, it's going to go through the entire set of Metasploit auxiliaries, where if you're doing if you're scanning 500 hosts, you're only going to want to do version detection, maybe a couple other checks. Again, it's up to you. You can change the resource files as you need. So what it's going through now is it loaded up Metasploit and it's running each one of these individual resource files. The cool thing about this is all this data right now is going into a database. So right now it's enumerating different usernames. Some of the Metasploit auxiliaries are very, very quick. Others take a little longer. And I've made some notes in the HTTP resource file to give you an idea of which ones you might want to comment out. And I'll show that right now while this is running. So as you can see in the HTTP, the short resource file, I've only got one auxiliary scanner in there right now, but for the main one, there are a ton of scanners. And there's various ones that I've commented out, like you can see right here. It's a brute force type of login. And to run this, just obviously uncomment it out, add your run in.
Does it run the BNet modules?
Sorry?
Does it run the BNet modules?
Not right now, but it will. See, that's the kind of stuff, one of these cons that you just, you know, you're in a silo at the house and you got heads down and you're doing this stuff and you're like, oh, why would I ever do that? Until you come out and say, oh, that's one.
More or less.
Okay, so it's went through those 3 hosts with no errors. So it's dumped us out to, you can see that all the supporting data now is in the following location. So let's see here. And this is what your supporting data folder looks like. Basically, you've got individual lists of IP addresses. So for example, this cat, we got 1 IP in this list. The ideas with this is, for example, if we get so 25, you can then send that off to your email team and go, by the way, these are all the mail servers that we found, and with the following vulnerabilities, you guys need to patch these and go back and check with this IP address again. Also, what it's done is it's all everything that it dumped to that Metasploit database is right here, as well as the Nmap scan. So you can take both of these XML files right here. You can either like re-import that to Metasploit here, or what I do is I dump that into Metasploit Express, use that for further exploitation. And the last part is the report. All right, so this is what the client, or part of what the client gets. Start time, end time, the scanner IP, because they're always asking that, the version of Nmap that I'm running, discovered hosts, all the open ports. Normally this is like a couple hundred, so trying to better way for the longer ports here. All the different banners that you were able to enumerate. And then these are the high-value ports, high-value hosts by port. These are all the individual files that we are able to put together. So you can see that we've only got 1 box running MySQL right here. Okay. And then here is your basic, your Nmap out with open ports, services, version information, and OS details. Next part is your Nmap scripts. You can see further enumeration, different SMTP commands that this mail server will let you run. Version of bind on this DNS server. File shares, computer name, anonymous read access, all the different shares, and various accounts. Again, that's all of Nmap. And more enumeration here. All the Metasploit stuff, like I said, is within the XML file for that. That's it, nothing groundbreaking, just automating your process and just trying to help you to get out of the client site. Any questions? All right. Thanks so much for your time.